Let's give that a try.
Cool.
Let us give that a try. Cool. Well, here we go.
Hey, everybody, you're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. Today is a new experience on the show, but we're going to make it happen. We're going to make it work. And I can promise you just as much great ideas and conversations and information today as we've always had. We're just going to do it a little bit differently. So for those who don't know me, I'm Teddy Burriss. I work for a company called Burriss Consulting. We're LinkedIn strategists, trainers, and coaches. We're YouTubers as well. We've got now we have 2 YouTube channels we're building that we help people in lots of different ways. And for me, it's all about teaching people how to use the business tools that they have in the best possible way to get the best value out of it. So that's who I am. Randy, introduce yourself. I think there's at least one person out of the 8,000 that doesn't know you.
Yeah, shame on them. Randy Wooden, work with Goodwill Industries, Northwest North Carolina, run our professional center when I'm not doing other things in the community. Anyway, but yeah, if you're a job hunter, professional, however you want to define that, really, could be that you're in a salaried role or have a degree or maybe in a leadership capacity, that kind of thing. We help folks, and Goodwill in general helps job hunters, whether it's with the job search or maybe helping them to upskill a bit and acquire new skills so they can earn a livable wage. And so, but my demographic is typically the folks that will be on this call that will view it later and so forth, professionals. So please reach out. Our services are free. And with that, are we ready to divulge what's going on this week?
Well, Randy, you know, this is an interesting experience for us. You know, we've not run into that. This is show number, what is it, 79, I think?
And about that, yeah.
78 maybe?
Yeah.
And in 78 shows, we have been lucky. We have not had any real technical or human problems beyond the problems of me and you.
Well, we've never had that actually. Now we've had a couple times where we may have had multiple guests and one had to bail on us, or we've had to switch guests at the last moment, but it's still the same topic. So, but we've never had it where a day in advance we get an email that said, "Hey guys, sorry, I can't make it." And so what we did, and it all worked out. So what we're going to do is roll the videotape here in just a moment. But we were able to interview Melissa Hughes earlier this morning. And so it's about a 45-minute segment. So you're not going to be able to chat in your questions in real time because she's not here to answer those. But we covered a whole host of topics and a lot of fun stuff that relates to job searching, interviewing, and also, you know, when you go out to eat and also when you engage with people in your community. And so what we'd like you to do is to chat in your experiences in those various topics that we cover. And then when that 45-minute segment's over, Teddy and I'll have about 10 minutes or so. And we'll cover some of those, maybe just rehash a few and maybe share a story or two that we've experienced. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be informative. Melissa Hughes, she rocks. And she was on our show a few months back. She's on today. So Teddy, unless I'm missing something,
no, you and I will be able to monitor chat, monitor Q&A. We'll engage with you. You know, let's make this a conversation around this story that, or around this content that Melissa's going to share with us. And that being said, let me go ahead and share this with you. And I promise you will enjoy it.
This is going to be fun. It really will be.
Randy, would you be so kind as to introduce our guest?
Absolutely. A return engagement, a repeat offender. Melissa Hughes, PhD out of Naples, Florida, joins us. Good morning and good afternoon. And wherever you are in the world, if you're watching us, it could be evening. So we just say welcome to all of us, all of you that are watching. And Melissa returns, and she's our geek expert, Teddy. We're going to get geeky today. And so that's a good thing.
The way you told me is that she's going to get all up inside of my head and freak me out.
Oh, well, there's that too. It's about time somebody worked on your head over there, Teddy.
Right.
Melissa Hughes joins us. She was here a few months ago and talked about imposter syndrome.
Well,
and
there's that too.
Uncertainty on the brain and such.
It's about time somebody worked on your head over there.
And I'll just briefly make mention that you are very involved with an organization, and I'd like you to share some thoughts on that. And then we'll dive into some topics today that people may not be aware of, at least consciously, but subconsciously. There's a lot going on. I know, Teddy, I know it's hard to understand, but there's a lot going on up here. And we're going to talk more about it. But yeah, what's the organization, Melissa, you're involved with and very actively involved as well?
That's right. I am the
Yep.
Florida Program Director for an organization called Give Something Back. And we provide scholarship and mentorship to students to help them pursue a successful post-secondary path.
Yeah.
And we stay with them from 8th and 9th grade all the way through to the end of their program completion, whether that is a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree or a certificate or trade program. So we
What
are
got you?
all over
Yeah.
the United States. Give something back. So if you're passionate about kids, check us out.
Yeah. And you're also expanding into North Carolina, I think you said, right? Yeah.
We are looking at expanding into North Carolina.
Good deal. Just curiosity wise, what got you started with that anyway?
Uh, I started my career as an educator. I was a fourth grade teacher before I went on to get geeky and do brainy things. But I have always had a passion for helping kids, and Give Back is, they stumbled upon me or I stumbled upon them. I'm not exactly sure how that worked, but it's a perfect match because they just do amazing work and help kids get to school who might otherwise not get to school. So it's a great organization.
Appreciate you joining us today. So anything else you'd like to share about what you're up to and so forth?
I just keep getting geekier and geekier. My passion is neuroscience, and I unabashedly own my geekiness. And what I know is that, well, not everyone likes to get into the weeds of the research, the multiple regression analysis, and all the n size and all that stuff. I love it, but what I do know is that most people want to know, what does that mean for me? How does my brain work, and how can I make it work better? And that is what I love to share.
Absolutely. All right. So we're going to tie some of this stuff into job hunting. Of course, a lot of our audience actively in a job search, but then a lot of folks also are just curious about the topic. They're employed. They want to know how their brain works. They want to know how to improve their performance on the job, maybe also in dealing with friends and family. And so understanding how the brain works, I think, can be very helpful. So let's dive in. And one of the phrases that we had kicked around before we went on here was priming. And I don't know what priming is. So let's define what that is. Let's talk examples and how that plays out in our lives.
Priming is pretty much exactly what you think it might be. It is really just predisposing your mental state to a certain circumstance. So I'll give you, and it happens all the time, and we don't even know that it's happening. I'll give you a really great example to kind of set the scene. There was a study done where researchers were in a mall, and they were trying to get folks to take a survey. And so they had their clipboard, and they would just approach random people and say, "Excuse me, but would you take a few minutes to take this survey?"
Okay.
And most people walked right on by. Maybe about 28% actually stopped to take the survey. And then they switched it up. And instead of approaching them and asking them to take the survey, they first approached them and said, "Excuse me, but do you consider yourself to be a helpful person?" And everybody says, "Well, yeah, I'm a helpful person." And then they said, "Well, could you help me and just take a couple minutes for this survey?" And the number of people that took the survey jumped to like over 70%. And it's the priming effect. It is just creating something in the brain. There was another study done with word puzzles. They gave folks word puzzles in two groups. One group did a word puzzle with just random neutral words, and another group did a word puzzle with words that were related to old age: elderly, wrinkled, tired, right?
You're describing my life. What are you talking about?
The people that did this word puzzle with neutral words,
Yeah.
they turned in their word puzzle and they walked away. The people that did the word puzzles with the elderly related words, they walked away slower. They were more tired. They were hunched over. They actually walked away, and in a sense, they took those words with them as they
Wow.
walked away from the study. Weird, right?
It is. It reminds me, I sat through a sales training class a long time ago. Let's just say it was a long time ago. And you ever have somebody walk up to you and start telling you what they think or how you should solve a problem? And one of your first thoughts is, I didn't ask for your stupid advice. But one of the things that this instructor prompted us to say was this, and it dovetails with exactly what you're talking about with those surveys. And it's this: may I make a suggestion? And you shut up until they say yes. If they say, what is it? May I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
Once they say yes, they have given you permission to make a suggestion. Otherwise, it can be forced. It sounds like you're forcing it on them. And so that's a great sales technique, but it's also a great thing to do at work. I've found when people are struggling, because, as a dude, I want to come in and fix stuff. All right. I'm a guy like, all right, I'm going to fix this thing. You didn't ask me for my input, but I'm going to give it to you. And I've learned over the years to say, well, could I make a suggestion? Could I?
Absolutely.
Bingo. Now I've got permission. And so anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in because that was really a great learning time for me to pick up on that, because I'm so eager to want to help, but sometimes they're not ready to hear it.
And I do something similar in my coaching when I have a group, and I will say to the person, somebody will ask me a question, and I'll say, would you mind if I brought your LinkedIn profile up on the screen and talk about it? Which as a LinkedIn coach, that's what I do. But then the other thing I do is I say this, I go, oh my God, I have some great ideas for you. May I share those ideas with you? And the reason I do that, Melissa, and let me know what your thoughts are on this, is because the moment I ask you, Melissa, for permission to give you some suggestions, you're going to tune out everything else and pay attention to me. Am I on the right track?
Absolutely. Absolutely right. I think, they say this in the hospitality industry, in restaurants, it's 90% presentation, right? Yeah. We enjoy the meal because of the music and the hostess and the server and the menu and the place setting and the food. But we taste the food with our brain long before we taste the food with our tongue. It's all in the presentation. Yeah.
So if I'm in an interview, I'm thinking about this priming in the context of interview. If I'm in an interview and someone asks me a question, I really want them to pay attention to the words I use. I might say, oh my God, Melissa, you just reminded me of a story about something I did that was really relevant to what you want me to do. And I want to get them to do what you're doing right now. Yeah. Tell me more, Teddy. Tell me more.
Well, the brain, I mean, you just brought up a whole nother show, Teddy, but the brain naturally primes to stories because we innately connect to stories. Yeah. So, think about when you watch a movie and it's a sad movie and, the character cries or the character is frightened or the character is happy. We tend to have those same kind of emotions. And actually our brains, thanks to mirror neurons, our brains actually generate the same neurochemistry as the actors, what we're seeing on screen. So you're absolutely right. By creating that story, you actually draw that person in, and it actually creates focus and attention. And because we look for connection in stories. So that's a great tactic.
And before you go on, Randy, I just want to, in that context, if I'm going to tell the interviewer a story, it daggone well better be relevant, clear, and show you, let them see you in that story relevant to where they want to see you in this job.
Yeah. And also politicians use stories to bond. Strange as that may seem, but yeah, they'll tell a story. Let me share a story about so-and-so and the struggles they faced. And I feel your pain and all of that stuff, but it helps people to relate to them. So let's back on this priming. You mentioned word puzzles. I found it was interesting when you had the, the elderly terminology and how people walked slower and such. I don't know if there are studies to show how long that effect stays in place. Is it temporary?
I don't know how long.
How long? Yeah. How long is stay with? What's the after effect here? How,
I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you this.
Yeah.
There was another study done where they actually primed people with pictures. So they had 4 pictures, and one was an object. Each picture had the same object, but each picture had a different set of objects in the background. So one had one person, one had no people, one had 2 people facing each other, and the other one had 2 people back to back, right?
Okay.
And so they primed these groups one at a time with each of these pictures. And then the researcher walked into the room and pretended to drop a container of sticks, and then watched what happened. First said nothing to see who of the subjects would help step up and help pick up the sticks. Then said, "Oh my, I've dropped my sticks," and waited to see who would help pick up the sticks. The group that immediately stopped to help to pick up the sticks was the group that saw the picture of the 2 people facing each other. Now, you can say, okay, well, I get that priming. But here's the fascinating part. The subjects were 18 months old. 18 months old. So the priming effect is something that is like hardwired into us. Like, they didn't learn that, right? They looked at a picture of an object with 2 people facing each other, and that made them much more cooperative. Right? Because we are wired to connect with other people. Going back to that whole thing about stories, Teddy, if you go into an interview and you see that somebody has, I went to the University of Akron. So I go into an interview and I see that somebody's got the Akron zips on the wall, something about the University of Akron. I create a connection with that person. I am priming them to already like me. And, for just because we share that small connection, because the brain is always looking for connection. And once you make that connection, then there's another cognitive bias in play, which is the horns and halo effect, which says, if you like me about that, you're going to like me about these other things that are completely unrelated. But if you don't like me about that, you're not going to like me about these other things that are not related. That's
horns and halos.
So you prime the interviewer to like you about something right when you walk in, before you even start to talk about the job.
Interesting. And, salespeople are renowned for, oh my, what a lovely place, or, all that crap. Right. And most of the time you can see through it because it's fake. And so I think there's the BS detector that we all have. I don't know what part of the brain that lives in, but I think, it's that boomerang effect or whatever that just says, oh, this guy tried to suck up to me and you know what, it didn't work. You know what? I think this guy's a fraud, and therefore I don't want to believe anything they have to say.
Yeah.
That's why you have to be genuine, and you truly have to be on the lookout for a connection. Like, my job going in is to find that connection, not make it up. If I make it up, my cover's blown. Like you said.
Yeah,
it's
really fraud.
Easy to figure out the people that are just blowing smoke.
Yeah.
One of the a guy I worked with for many years had this huge blue marlin fish. It was 10 feet long, huge thing stuck on his wall. And I asked him, I said, man, I don't know you as a fisherman. Did you you buy that at a yard sale? He did. He bought that and put it in his office because he thought it was pretty. And he said, I put it up there, and he said, you can't imagine the number of salespeople, towards Melissa's statement about priming, come in and go, oh, I'm a fisherman too. Insincere.
Yeah.
And he says the moment that happens, he knows that person's, the way they work.
Well, and here's another strategy in that particular situation. You walk in, you see this unusual object. A better way is than to make up, hey, I'm a fisherman too, is to say, hey, that's unusual. Tell me about that.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me where that came, because now you're putting the story in play from their perspective. They're sharing the story, which is even more powerful.
Interesting. We're talking with Dr. Melissa Hughes by way of Naples, Florida, and we're going to talk priming. We've talked that already. Depending on how much time we have, we're going to get into the anchor effect. Speaking of fish and boating and all that, the anchor effect, and also the paradox of choice. But we want to tie things into the interview itself and for job hunters as well. And you mentioned it's all in the presentation. And so storytelling in the interview is good. I take it, right? That's a way to handle questions. What are other tips you have for setting the interviewer's brain in such a way that they're predisposed to, to like you? Are there certain tips, tricks, whatever? And I mean tricks in a good way that you can do to try to win them over.
The first is to be genuine, because we are really good at sniffing out people who are disingenuous.
Yeah.
So the first is just to be genuine. The second, or maybe the first, is to smile.
Mm-hmm.
Smile, because smiling does lots of things. First, the neuroscience piece first. When you smile, the brain actually generates good chemicals. It's like a little party in your brain. Dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. Not even kidding. I'm not even kidding. And I'm going to challenge your listeners today, or your viewers, to today, I want you to do this 5 times. I want you to smile at random strangers, like not in a creepy way, but just genuine, a genuine smile to random strangers.
Not
5
creepy,
times
Diddy.
today. And I bet you, if 5 people see you smiling at them, they will smile back. Mm-hmm. It happens. It's almost impossible not to smile back when someone smiles at you.
Sure.
And part of the reason for that is the mirror neurons. So we learned about mirror neurons in Italy, Parma, Italy, back in the 60s, and it was all quite by accident. But mirror neurons, in less than 60 seconds, when you smile at someone, make eye contact with that person, you actually create a connection. And in less than 60 seconds, that person's brain will produce the same good chemicals as your brain.
Nice.
And when you're walking into an interview, you want that interviewer to be in a positive state of mind, period, right? So smiling is the first thing. The other thing that happens when you smile, you look younger, you look more confident, you look more competent, and studies show you're more attractive when you smile.
Yeah, I need all the help I can get. Thanks, Melissa. I appreciate that.
That's in all those areas,
every one of them. That's excellent. That's excellent. And I will say this, a lot of interviewers, candidates that is, are very nervous. Mm-hmm. And for a whole lot of things are going on. And I don't know if you can speak to that in terms of the nervousness and how that puts a damper on the joy and the outward expression, because they're so, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's not easy to go into an interview. I mean,
yeah.
First of all, you need the job. So there's all that other angst and agita going on in your life that you bring in with you. So, the one thing that I would say is have a basic understanding of the nervous system. So there are 2 parts of the nervous system. One is the parasympathetic nervous system. The other is the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is engaged when you got that agita, when you're nervous, And that is when the sympathetic nervous system is engaged, your body is actually preparing for fight or flight.
Ah.
And when that happens, your brain is generating cortisol. And cortisol actually activates the survival part of your brain, not the thinking part of your brain.
Yeah. That makes it tough on you.
So how do you deactivate the sympathetic nervous system and activate the parasympathetic nervous system? Deep diaphragmatic breathing. So before you walk into that interview, just take 5 minutes to do very intentional, deep diaphragmatic breaths. And what is a diaphragmatic breath? When I do this with kids, it's you push out your belly like you got a big pregnant belly. And then when you breathe out and when you breathe in, you bring it back in. And that actually activates the parasympathetic nervous system. And there's a nerve that actually engages when you activate the parasympathetic nervous system. It's called the vagus nerve. And vagus is actually, the word comes from a word that means the wanderer. And the vagus nerve is actually the longest nerve in the body. And it goes all the way up to your brain and all the way down to the glands around your kidneys. And what happens then is the vagus nerve says, calm down. You don't need to be stressed. No reason for fight or flight. Shuts down the cortisol production, engages the serotonin, which is the chill pill. And serotonin activates the thinking part of your brain. So breathing, that is like that's the best kept secret in the world.
Awesome.
And by the way, serotonin is what is found in most antidepressants. And we generate it naturally right up here.
By breathing better.
Easiest way to generate serotonin is diaphragmatic breaths. The other easy way to generate serotonin is we get it from the sun. So if you happen to live in a sunny place like I do, or like you do, the sun gives it to us too, but breathing. The other thing I would say about managing nerves and an interview situation is, you know, you go in there thinking about, you want to have all the right answers. I want to say the right things. I want the person to like me. I want that person to like my responses. But one way to actually start that conversation and on a even, you know, more centered, more grounded mental space is if that person opens up and starts to tell you some things about him or her or the organization, ask questions.
Yes.
Let that person talk about them or the organization. Because the best way to make someone like you is to ask questions about that person. So if you can start, and sometimes they start with the questions, but if there's a place where you can organically demonstrate that you're really curious about them, gives you a chance to breathe, it gives them a chance to talk about themselves, and it's a nice grounding space.
So I had a vendor challenge. I'm not going to tell you the name of the vendor. We all use this vendor to produce the power that's in our walls. And I had a problem that had to be resolved with this company. And so I called the number, and the lady who answered the phone, you could tell she wasn't having a good morning, which, you know, this lady gets the phone calls from people who want to, you know, complain and, you know, snort and yell at her because stuff ain't right. Well, I wasn't going to be that person, but I could tell she was in a bad mood. She can't see me, so she can't see the fact I'm smiling. She might be able to feel it in my words. But Melissa, I asked her, I said, hey, where are you at? And she told me the name of the city. I said, oh, I love your city. And then, you know, a few more questions. You could tell she was still not in a good mood, and she was like being mechanical in the responses. And I asked her another question. I said, hey, do you know where such and such restaurant is in the city you're in? And she goes, oh, I love that restaurant. Boom, I just broke through her.
Turned it all around.
Turned it all around. So not only did she solve my problem in a timely manner, but this is what I love, Melissa. It's not the value that I got from it, it's the value she got from it. Because at the end of the conversation, she said, I really appreciate you calling me today.
Yeah.
And I know that had an impact. I got my problem solved and didn't cost me any more money. I'm with you. Change the way what nerves, change it from the sympathetic. Oh, I'm saying it wrong. Para versus sympathetic.
Sympathetic is the
That's
fight
the
or
bad.
flight. This is the way I remember it. Think of a parachute. A parachute just floats on down.
Yeah.
Parasympathetic, parachute. That's how I remember it.
Yeah. Hey, Teddy, I had the same thing with the not with the company that provides the power that you plug stuff into, but if you were to turn on your TV and flip through the channels, the company that provides those channels had the same thing happen when I called to cut the cord.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I got a lady at first who was just kind of, again, they handle the people that are ticked off and want to drop their service and everything else. And so at the end of it, she was like, this, I really hope the best for you. I mean, it just turned around totally. Hey, we're talking with Dr. Melissa Hughes about priming, interviewing, just a whole host of things that can kind of crop up in the brain in the subconscious. And we like to think, especially I like to think, okay, I have a plan. This is my plan. And as Mike Tyson used to say, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Right. And then things change.
Or get their ear bit off.
Or that too. But there's a lot that goes on that we're not aware of. We may have the best, laid plans kind of a thing, but is there anything else you want to talk about as far as priming goes? And I'll call it the power of suggestion. Maybe that's another way to look at things. Anything else on that topic?
Well, a close cousin of priming is the anchor effect. And it works almost the same way. Yeah. So there have been all kinds of studies on the anchor effect. And what's really fascinating to me is that the brain is especially receptive to numerical anchors. And I'll give you an example. So there's a guy named Dan Ariely. He wrote a book called Predictably Irrational, and he wrote some other books, and he did like 5 TED Talks or some craziness. But he's a fascinating guy, very smart, and he really likes to figure out, like, why do we do the crazy things that we do that make no sense? Yeah. And he worked with a group of students at MIT, and he also replicated this study a million other times. But he held an auction, and he said, I'm going to auction off this thing and this thing, and he holds up a bottle of wine, and he said, now before we start the auction, what I'd like for you to do is, I'd like for you to write down the last 2 digits of your social security number on a piece of paper. So everybody writes down the last 2 numbers of their social security number. And he holds up the bottle of wine, and he says, now I'm going to start the bidding for this bottle of wine. And what he found was this same group of people got the same description of the wine. They, had the same, whether they wanted that wine or not. But if the social security number was between 0 and 20, the last 2 digits of the number were between 0 and 20, the average bid for that bottle of wine was around $11. If the last 2 numbers of their social security number were between 80 and 99, the average bid for that same bottle of wine, same group of people, same description, was about $36. What happens is the brain is primed with that anchor, and anchors are very powerful. We're always looking for anchors. I'll give you another example. When you go into a restaurant and they say, do you have a reservation? And you say, no. They say, well, your wait time will be 20 minutes. 20 minutes is the anchor. If they seat you in 10 minutes, you're happy. If they seat you in 30 minutes, you're pissed. You got more pissed every minute that went by after 20 minutes, right? Yeah. That same 20 minutes, right? If they would have told you, let's say you're seated in 20 minutes, if they would have told you it's going to be 30-minute wait, and then they seat you in 20 minutes, now you're happy. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. It's the prime that sets the expectation. Like, now everything goes from there. It works the same with negotiating a car, negotiating a salary. I mean, the brain is really quirky that way, and numbers are sticky.
They are, and of course, and Teddy probably does the same. But I put out a number of videos on salary negotiation, and when they ask you, so what are you looking for? And certainly you want to forestall having the discussion until you determine it's a good fit. But at some point, you either have to spit it out or they show you the door. But when you do, you don't want to say a specific number, 52,000, because that becomes a line in the sand. Same thing for the employer. If they come out and they say, well, this will pay between 50 and 60, as the candidate, I heard 60. And I get fixated on that. And if I tell them I want between 50 and 60, they get fixated on 50. And so it's a negotiating thing. And again, excellent point with the car and the time waiting. I wonder too, if let's say I'm going to go out to eat, let's say Teddy's buying, I know that's hard to understand, but let's say Teddy is buying lunch and they say it's going to be a 30-minute wait. Does our brain, because we've been lied to so often about expectations, does it factor in that, oh crap, they say 30, it's going to be 45. Teddy, do you really want to wait 45 minutes? Or do we sniff out the BS, or do we take it literally when they say 30?
Well, I think it depends on the establishment. Like, so if this is your place, if this is your go-to place, and they tell you 30 minutes and you like the place and you like the people, then you're probably going to wait that out. But even then, if you're seated before 30 minutes, you're going to be way happier than if you're seated after 30 minutes. But here's another scenario. We don't like the unknown. So that's why we look for an anchor, because we don't like to not know what that number is. So here's another example. You're at the airport and you're waiting at the gate and you're waiting to get on your airplane, and the gate agent says, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we're going to have a slight delay. We have a mechanical issue on the plane and the mechanics are there and they're fixing it. And so we'll be right back with you as soon as we know what's going on.
Yeah,
that doesn't feel good.
Oh.
I don't know if I have enough time to go to the bathroom or go get a magazine or go get something to eat. Likewise, if they say it's going to be about an hour, at least I know it's going to be an hour. Now I can go get my magazine or I can go get something to eat or whatever. But if they say it's going to be an hour and then it's 3 hours, now I'm really mad. But if they say it's going to be 10 minutes and it's an hour, now I'm really mad too. So, the anchor sets the expectation.
So anchoring in that whole salary conversations during an interview, how do we play with this anchoring so that it's advantageous to the candidate? Is there a thought there, Melissa? What do you? I mean, let's say it's a $60,000 job, and you don't want less than 50, and you're happy with 70, and how do you play with that anchoring so that the interviewer has at least some idea what your expectations are? Am I making sense here?
Well, I think the best start is to do some research.
Yeah.
Figure out what is the salary range for that particular position at that particular company. Because if if the salary range of the people that have been doing that job for the last 20 years aren't breaking 50, and you come in and you say you need 80, well, you priced yourself out of the running. Yeah. But if you go into it and you have an idea of what the salary range is for that position, now you have a starting place for negotiation that's based on something that makes sense to the interviewer, right? It's not just about your skill set. It's about your ability to research that company and come in with some knowledge.
I've got a tip that I give, and I didn't realize, excuse me, the term was anchoring, but it makes a lot of sense. So if I'm the candidate and they say, what are you looking for? And I can't change the subject, I can't forestall anymore, and I've got to give them a range. Otherwise, again, they show me the door. If I think, based on my research and based on the industry norms and such, that this job would probably pay in the lower half of the 50s, for example, then what I do is when I give them a range, I don't want to give them a specific number because of the anchoring thing. But if I give them a range and I frame it with specific numbers, that's just as bad. If I say 50 to 60, they focus on 50. Okay. what I encourage folks to say is, the whole blah, blah, blah about, done my research and, but when it comes to spitting out some numbers, I talk in ranges, the lower to upper 50s, because that way it's harder for them to fixate on a number. Low 50s to the employer is 51, 52, 53. To me, it's as a candidate, it's 52, 53-ish. So we've got some wiggle room to play with, and we're not throwing a specific number out there, either one number or the range on both ends. It gives wiggle room, and it allows for a win-win situation. If I say I need 52 and they offer me 51, I'll feel like I got hosed by $1,000. But if I say low or maybe low to mid 50s, and they come in at 54, and I really would have taken the 52, 53, I feel like I gained 1,000. And again, it's a subliminal kind of stuff, but I've always encouraged folks to forestall that talk about salary. And when you're forced to do it, give them a range.
I totally agree with that.
A range.
And also,
yeah,
if the range is lower, if they offer up a range that is lower than what you like, remember this line: people quit jobs for a lack of growth more than for lack of money.
Yeah.
So, if they offer up a range that is lower than what you like, and you really need the job, one way to address that is to say, I'd be willing to start at that if I were assured that there are going to be opportunities for me to stretch and grow, because that's important to me. Yeah. Personal, professional growth is important to me. Yeah. And, can you tell me a little bit about opportunities for growth within the company? That is a reasonable question. Yeah. And that demonstrates that, that number is not exactly where I am, but boy, I really could work here. Like I could really add value here, and I want to grow.
Yeah. There are a lot of things at play there, and demonstrating value is another one. And that's maybe a topic for another day, but it goes back to, if they right off the bat at the beginning of the interview ask you, what are you looking for? Or vice versa, you walk in and go, hey, before I waste your time and mine, what does this job pay? And you haven't demonstrated value, and they haven't demonstrated value from a company standpoint, then it's to your detriment. And so you want to forestall that. Same thing with car buying. I don't want to show you a car that's over your budget, but if I can get you in that car, that's a different thing. But first, I've got to address your initial concerns and show you things that are within your price range or slightly above, and not show you something that's way out there, because you just walk away and say, this guy's not paying attention. Anything else with the anchor effect you want to hit on? We've got a few minutes left. Anything else? Yeah.
Oh, there have been so many. There are so many studies on the anchor effect. I mean, even just using currency symbols, on menus. Like if you use a currency symbol or you just use the numbers, if you start to pay attention to menus, you'll see more and more menus don't have the dollar sign.
Yeah.
And has everything to do with the pain of paying, because there is, your reward center has to be activated more than your pain center nobody likes to pay for things. So there's that. I mean, the anchor effect is just all over the place, and as is the priming effect.
Yeah. Hey, so that reminds me, when I go pay for gasoline, it's whatever it is now, $3 and whatever, and 9/10 of a cent. And same thing when you go buy something for, it's only $19.99. There's got to be a science behind that as to instead of it being 20. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so this, actually, I've been doing a lot of research in the restaurant industry lately. So this is fascinating to me, because in retail, when you're buying a thing, it's that $19.99 feels less than 20. 20, like a solid 20 kind of cheapens that, or it devalues it somehow. But it works the opposite way in the restaurant business. In the restaurant, on the menu, if you say something is $14.99, that actually seems a little cheaper. People expect a lower quality to that than if it was just a solid 15. And then if you really want to poke the brain in a good way, drop the dollar sign. Don't put a dollar sign on there. And if you're in fine dining, then instead of using numbers, write out the word 15.
Yeah, and I don't go to the fine. Teddy's a big budget guy, so he goes out to those fancy places where they use cloth napkins and
And
no
real
plastic.
silverware.
Yeah, real silverware. But for the regular folks, I've noticed at not that I eat out a lot because I really don't, but I'm making this up. But I do remember when I had money. But no, I remember going out to eat, and at certainly at fast food restaurants and the lower end establishments, you're going to have the dollars and cents, and maybe in part because it helps people, I don't know, maybe feel like it's cheaper in some way, and because they're buying in effect based on cost, not because of the value of the food. But in finer restaurants, you won't even, you just see the number. The piece of pie is 8, right? And now I've never seen it spelled out, but that makes sense. Interesting. How that all, yeah.
Randy, you got to be like me to see it spelled out, buddy. I watch a lot of high-end videos, these big movies,
I'm sure you get around, Teddy. But very interesting how the brain works. We've got just a couple of minutes left here. And so I thought it might be nice at this point, Melissa, if you could offer up a few takeaways that you'd like folks to have as they go about the interview, the job hunt process, and really just in real life, this whole priming and anchor effect, that sort of thing. So what are some takeaways for us?
So don't forget to smile. So
Yeah.
don't forget the challenge today. 5 people, 5 smiles, pay attention to what happens. And I guess that's the second thing I would say. Pay attention to what you pay attention to.
Yeah.
Because the brain actually likes patterns also. So we can get stuck in a vicious cycle, or we can get stuck in what they call the virtuous cycle. And the vicious cycle, we've all been there, where you think everything in your day is just going south. Like, we have all had those days, right? You get up in the morning, you're late, you spill coffee on your blouse, there's traffic and you're late. Now you can't find a parking spot. It's raining. You forgot your umbrella. It's like, what else could happen in this day? The truth is that on days like that, it's not that more bad things are happening. Like, pretty much the same ratio of good things to bad things happen every day. The difference between the really great days and the really miserable days is what we pay attention to, right? So on those really great days, and you go, man, this was the best day ever. This good thing happened, and this good thing happened, and that. It's because you noticed them. You paid attention to the good things. So my big takeaway is pay attention to what you pay attention to. Look for the good things, because if you are in the market for the good stuff, your brain will find the good stuff.
Cool. I love that. That's really powerful. So,
It really is. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. This is great. I love when you come in and you make Randy and I think and learn.
We should try that more often, Teddy. I'm sure we're going to cover a topic, I'm sure at some point with Melissa called exercising your brain, and how, because let's face it, Teddy and I are in our golden years, and we need to exercise our brain and our cognitive ability. You like that word, Teddy? Cognitive abilities. Otherwise, I guess what, if you don't use it, you lose it to some degree.
The brain works on the use it or lose it principle. It's called neural pruning. And when you stop using dendrites and neural connections, the brain says, must not need this anymore, because it's a highly efficient machine.
Yeah.
And
sounds like an efficient lawnmower in the background too.
No, sorry. How is that every time I'm having like an engaging conversation with 2 of my favorite people, the landscaper decides to come right up?
Melissa, I hope you'll return and we'll cover some more topics, because the brain is a mighty fascinating topic. And there's so much that we don't know. We don't know what we don't know, but you're 100% right early on. I don't know or care about all the 8-syllable words and all of that, but how does that impact my life? Why do I do what I do? Why do I think what I think? And how do I go about that thinking process? To me, it's fascinating. It really is. And we can live vicariously through you. So I hope you'll join us again. Thank you so much. And
thank you.
And best of luck with your the Give Something Back program. And again, if you want to share just real briefly what you do with those folks and how they might, if they're interested, get involved.
Yeah.
So Give Back is dedicated to helping young people chart a path for future success, and we stick with them until they get there. We're all over the country. If you want to learn more about us, it is you can go to www.giveback.ngo.
NGO. And if somebody wanted to reach out to you on a professional level, is there a way to LinkedIn, or how should they do that?
They can reach me at melissahughes.rocks.
Yeah. And I'll share that in the chat, Randy.
That'll work.
Melissa,
well.
I expect for you to, or whoever at, give, I'm trying to get the name right, Give Something Back when they hit North Carolina to say hello to me, because I want to hear more and see how it happens in North Carolina.
I will absolutely do that. We have amazing partners, community-based organizations that partner with us. We couldn't do what we do without our community-based organizations and collaborations. And so absolutely, I will reach out to you. But if you're interested in learning how you can be a part of Give Back,
go to
check us out online.
Thanks, Melissa Hughes. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you next time. Take care. All right.
Bye-bye. Randy,
hey man, that was great.
Randy, we pulled it off, dude.
We did. And the technical issues were not there. So, we're ready to rock. I tell you what, here's something. I hadn't shared this with you or with Melissa. And I think, she was one of our most watched after the fact videos that we've ever had. And we had a large audience when she was live the first time. Our audience today was smaller. And I'm wondering, and remember before we went live, I asked her, I said, so what is priming? And what I fear is that people didn't understand what priming is and how it relates to their lives and the interview process. So when we share this later, I'm going to make sure that we make that clear and what are some of the other topics we covered. But also, if you guys are watching this and you see that we've shared it, please share that with other folks, because if you're like me, this thing was amazing. We learned stuff that is practical for job hunters and it's fun. I mean, everybody's been out to eat and they say it'll be 30 minutes. And especially you go to Myrtle Beach, right? You go to Myrtle Beach, try to get somewhere to eat at 7:00 at night. Forget about it. It's just not going to happen. But I think a lot of people just don't understand what the word priming meant as it relates to the brain. And but the anchor effect, we looked at that. I'll tell you what, Teddy.
Neural pruning? Did
you
hear that?
Yeah, neural pruning.
Man, I've got to go get some books, Randy.
Yeah, we've got to crack the books and get studying. But priming, I think of paint. I think of priming the pump. But maybe there's a better descriptor that we can use for that. I'll tell you what, from a story standpoint, not a whole lot to really add. I mean, I think we've all lived it, where we see or we hear things and we associate, good, bad, or indifferent. But I will tell you this, and this ties back to this leadership Winston-Salem thing that I got involved with here recently, and they're big on Clifton strengths.
Yeah.
Remember Malcolm McDougall was a guest about a year ago. And he did a Clifton assessment with us and walked us through what those were. My number one strength is positivity. And I've had a number of people over the years comment on that. And it caught my eye when she talked about the vicious cycle and the virtuous cycle.
Yeah.
And how we need to pay attention to what we pay attention to. And how we, again, we spill coffee on ourselves. We're late to work. We're this and that and the other. And what's our outlook? Can we look for the positive and choose to focus in those areas? And that doesn't mean that poop isn't going to happen to you. It happens to everybody, varying degrees.
Yeah.
But how do we allow that to affect us? And do we live in the sympathetic or the parasympathetic?
Oh man, you're good
system?
with those big words, man.
It's parasympathetic is what we want. We want the parachute coming down like that. But that deep breathing, get out and walk. I love to read. Now, I don't read novels and stuff, but I love to read a lot of things. And so hopefully that'll keep the pruning. Is that the pruning piece? At bay.
Keep it at bay.
Keep it at bay.
Yeah.
But all good.
Greg threw out some big words. It's kind of freaking me out. I don't know what he's saying, but zone of proximal learning. So I'll have to go do some research on what is the zone of proximal learning.
That's the old ZPL, Teddy, for those in the know. Just saying.
Yeah. You're in the know because you just read ZPL in the chat, dude.
Okay.
Hey, I got a quick story that I'll intro our speaker, our special guest for next week.
Yeah.
Look, I'm going to just play off of what Melissa said about pay attention to what you're paying attention to. Oh my God, this is so powerful. I don't care if you're in job search, if you're got a full-time job, if you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, a community leader. It's imperative that you pay attention to what you are paying attention to.
Mm-hmm.
I love Facebook. For me, it's a really rich place for me to get into the right conversations with the right people at the right time. So I'm not on Facebook all day long. I like Twitter. I like Instagram. I like Snapchat. I like TikTok. For me to meet and connect and hear content and information from the right people on the right topics at the right time. Okay. So pay attention to what you're allowing to happen, how you're allowing your life to get sucked into something that may not be the right thing to get sucked into, because it can make a huge difference in your life as a whole, not just any one area of it. So pay attention to that. That's critical, absolutely critical. So
yeah,
and you opened a door for Melissa to come back again, buddy.
I did, and she also appeared on a Goodwill webinar that I hosted about 2 or 3 weeks ago. We had a lot of positive feedback on that as well. She's amazing, and for a variety of reasons, but one of the main ones is she's able to take the very high-end techie stuff and distill it down, and how we can relate to it and appreciate it in layman's terms. I mean, I could just see sitting there looking at the menu, or I could see the hostess saying, or here, it's going to be 20 minutes, that kind of a thing. But now you get me thinking, I'm like, you're right. Same thing at an airport. There's been a delay. Next thing you know, you could be sleeping in a corner of the airport, or it could be 20 minutes. You just don't know. And that goes back to that uncertainty.
Yeah.
With the brain. So, Hey, got a great show next week, right?
Yeah. So next week is Oscar Garcia.
Yep.
Oscar is he refers to himself as an introvert. Great guy. He speaks all over the world. He refers himself as a chief empowerment officer for Aspira Consulting. They're a Silicon Valley training and consulting company. They love to do work in career development and leadership training. And the conversation that Oscar is going to bring to us next week is turn. What was the word? Crap, Randy, I forgot it. Turn problems into positive. Turn adversity into positivity. He's going to talk about, the things that, that we need to be doing to help us grow and help us become better. So we become a better, create out better opportunities in our careers, our lives, our businesses. It's going to be a really good conversation. Oscar's a smart guy. And I'm telling you, keep giving us ideas of speakers. Keep giving us of special guests, I should be saying. So keep giving us ideas of topics you want us to bring to the table, and Randy and I will work our fannies off to make that happen. So,
of course. Hey, Teddy, you have a great rest of your day and rest of the week, my friend. Good always to talk to you, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
I will see you soon. See everybody next week.
All right, take care. Bye now.